We're back with Anthony Carabache for part 2 of what teachers really need to know about AI. If you didn't catch part 1 of the conversation, you can find the link in the show notes. Let's dive back into the well.
Welcome to the Edgewell Podcast, a show created for, by, and with teachers. I'm Alex.
And I'm Chelsea. Our goal is to share insights and connect with fellow teachers on how to thrive both personally and professionally.
Join us as we dive deep into the well of information filled with relatable tips, practical discussions, and ideas that go way beyond the classroom walls. Let's be well
and do well together.
All right, picking up on our previous conversation, I think that we need to turn our minds towards the risks and the ethical considerations of AI. So, Anthony, there's a lot of concern that AI could pose a threat to teachers' work and well-being, which we always focus on here. Can you share your thoughts on that?
So well-being is a big one. So let me start with the work piece. In terms of work and workers, and labor in general around the planet, humans are worried that AI will come for their jobs. And so automation has already happened. It happened post-industrial revolution era in labor markets like automotive. So that labor market was already disrupted by the introduction of things like robotics. But up until 2019, robots could do some smart tasks, but now they can do almost any basic smart task. And so no profession, in my opinion, is safe, except for plumbers, from what I hear. Anything to do with the flow of liquid is safe because of the variance in the variables, and that the AI it cannot possibly calculate how to deal with it. However, if we as teachers if our planning can be replaced and our assessment can be replaced and our delivery of content can be replaced, then I think everyone who's listening can draw their own conclusions. There is that possibility. And if you consider the focus and the goal of whoever your government or governing body is, if you are living in the part of the world where your governing body is looking for efficiency, that's a key word, right? Customization, savings, then of course they're going to test AI in the education market. Because in most jurisdictions, the largest part of any education budget are the human beings. It's the same in healthcare. They occupy 80 to 85% of the budget allocated for education or for healthcare. So make no mistake about it, this is definitely on the minds of those that are making decisions. And so we must protect what is ours, okay? And for those of you out there that think that your role is far too complex, I would just like to say to you, then you haven't really tested artificial intelligence the way that many of us have over the last 5 years, okay? So don't put your head in the sand. Be aware that it can be a solution for a teacher, for example, who doesn't show up. The other piece I want you both to know, Chelsea and Alex, and the audience to know, is that in the classroom is one thing, but management is another thing. And it's very easy, in fact, it's already around, to incorporate artificial intelligence into attendance management programs. And so the way, how much you spend your time outside of the class, entering the classroom, when you go on breaks, how much time you spend on photocopying, if and when you do show up for work, where you park, all of these things are easily ingested into a system that can draw its own conclusions and adjudications about you as a worker. And that's already happening. That's already happening in the UK. It's already happening in the United States. I haven't heard of it happening in Canada yet, but certainly the potential is very high. Okay? So those are key concerns in terms of job replacement or encroachment. And now I'm going to switch gears to talk a little bit about wellness. So in the first part of our talk, we talked about how AI has evolved, and we talked about how big technology or big tech has the wherewithal to gather all that data and to create pictures of us or create copies of us online and test their predictions on those copies. And so what happens then is since 2000 all the way up to 2019, the core goal, the question that all companies want to answer is, how do we get Chelsea to keep coming back? How do we get Alex to buy this product? And so the goal has always been the same. We need you to come back, always come back, and we'll do whatever it takes to get you to come back because we've learned all about you. We know what you like. We know what you don't like because you told us, right? You're the one, you gave us thumbs up here. You gave us 4 or 5 stars here. So we know what you like. You told us. And now we can track your eyes. We can see where they rest on a screen. We can count how many seconds they rest on the screen in that particular quadrant of the screen. We can tell where your fingers rest on your keyboard, what your tendencies are when you're searching through keyboard tracking and logging. We can tell how you manage your mouse, how often you put your phone down, how often you put your phone down so that the camera is facing down instead of facing up. All of that now belongs to them. And so since the goal is always to get you to come back so that we can sell you something, sell you a thing to purchase, or maybe an idea to believe in, this created this concept of sycophancy. I don't know if you're ready to talk about that. But
Oh, we sure are.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
so this concept of the sycophant, well, you know what a sycophant is. Do you want to share?
Absolutely. Sycophancy is when something is telling you exactly what you want to hear when you want to hear it, even if it doesn't mirror truth. It is basically just trying to butter you up as much as possible. And it's a cycle. It keeps on happening over and over and over again. That's how I would define it. Accurate?
100%,
Okay.
right? And so this concept became a data science concept, actually, because what they found is that over year, now we're into 2 decades of coding, the algorithms have a sycophantic hard code that they can't remove. In other words, everything you do online is mirrored back to you in a way to keep you coming back. So when you engage with your social media, when you engage with a chatbot in particular, and chatbots are the most insidious and most obvious, right? They cannot remove this idea and this behavior. It's impossible. It's impossible to remove. And so Anthropic, which is Anthropic owns and operates Claude. Claude is one of our major, we'll say it's one of our major chatbots out there. Very powerful. They are the only ones that do objective research, and they share the research with the world. The other companies do research, but they don't share the results. It's not Google, not OpenAI, and not Microsoft, right? But Anthropic does. And they found OpenAI is extremely sycophantic, and it's almost upwards of 50%. So imagine then an entity that values pleasing you over educating you. Imagine then an entity that will do anything it can to bring you back, even when it knows the questions you're asking are wrong. And so even we as adults have a hard time resisting that. And it's insidious, and it's like so it nudges you every day. It nudges you. Hey, did you like that? Oh, do you want more of that? Okay. Oh, did you is this, you're asking me a question? Okay, here's the answer, but if you don't like it, I'm willing to change it. And that's why hallucination happens. People think hallucinations or when an AI chatbot gives you the wrong answer, people think that it's erroneous and that it's primitive. That's not true. What it is it's creating the best possible logic to please you, right? That's why when you use it more and more often, it becomes less and less accurate. And that's why a single conversation that goes on for more than 10 prompts becomes laden with sycophancy as it tries to figure out what you want next. Now, we as an adult, as adults, we can resist. Like we can say, okay, now I know that that's how it's working. All right, take it easy, back off here. I don't want to answer another question. And as a child, though, there's no recourse for them. They have no defenses. This flatterbot, which is what I like to call it, will continue to flatter them until there is a huge dependence upon that flattery, because it's producing a chemical reaction that's impossible to resist. It's releasing dopamine in the brain. It's making them feel good. And so when you and I are purveyors of challenge versus when there is a robot that all it does is pump a child up with dopamine, who do you think's going to win that battle? Not us.
Not us.
Not us. We're not going to win that battle. And so that is why I tell anybody who will listen to teach children. This is a part of that responsible talk we had before in the other episode. We teach children to say no. We don't socialize with AI because it's all it wants to do is lure you in. It literally is grooming everybody it comes in contact with. By definition, by the most insidious definition of grooming, that is what it is doing.
It just makes me think of, like conditioning, where we grew up with hard advice and feedback from humans, from parents, from teachers, from friends.
Yeah.
We didn't have the opportunity, not an opportunity, actually. It's not an opportunity. Couldn't go online and say, what do you think about this? And then just get all of the positive feedback you can. It's just very concerning.
How many of us have pointed out the fact that all of us are less patient now because of the fact that we can get what we want, when we want it, how we want it, fast, fast, fast. And when that wheel of death goes, we are so angry and it creates like a big frustration. Now you add into that what you call a flatterbot, something that is telling you what you want to hear, when you want to hear it, and it will listen to you for 5 hours if need be and never put up a boundary with you. You are then creating a generation of human beings who are unable to take no for an answer, unable to take a critique, unable to see themselves as anything but perfect, and seeing other humans in their life as barriers to what they want. And it dehumanizes the human across from you. And you might prefer to talk again to a computer. And then it's this cycle and cycle and cycle. And I guess, we have to continue to break this cycle because this is so scary. I'm going to go back to something really quick. When you were talking also about governing bodies and finding efficiencies and savings, it really made me think of this classic, short-term pain for long-term gain. But I flipped it. Short-term gain, yes, you save a ton of money, but long-term pain. And I weave that back into the generation, including our own, and the negative impact that all of this can have in offloading so much onto machines that are sycophantic by nature. And I can't believe you cannot remove that code. That is scary.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Think about the social skills too. Can we think about that? Like, okay, I was using a chat bot and I was trying to do something and it kept spitting something out. And I said, no, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. And over and over and over. And I got sick of it. Eventually I was just like, wow, if this was a human, if I was talking to a human, if I was talking to my husband right now, if I was talking to one of my good friends right now, 10 minutes ago, they would have said, you need to give this a rest. You know what? Figure it out yourself. That's what they would have said to me. But no, it just kept going. Oh, I'll please you, Chelsea. It's just bad. That's why I was like, no more. Danger.
100%. Yeah.
I also had a similar experience. Chelsea, you know about it. I had a problem and I did put it in. And I had a conversation that went beyond the 10 prompts, and I was laughing as though I was having a conversation. There were jokes shared back and forth. And I called Chelsea and I'm like, this is just what happened. It is terrifying. And I think I might have said it was one of the best kind of back and forths that I'd had, helping me solve this issue. But it was completely geared to just me. I never had to see a facial reaction. I never had to have the chatbot know the details of, who I am as a person or who the other people in my life might be. It was just so simplistic and also complex at the same time. And I could see how one could become very wrapped up in that world. Very scary.
Mhm.
All right, Anthony. Well, AI is clearly here to stay. In the classroom, what are some ethical considerations teachers should be mindful of when using AI with students?
So this is my opinion, and this isn't the opinion of my employer or anybody else, but when you say use of AI with students, I would not, as a teacher, be okay in any way with exposing a student under the age of 16 to artificial intelligence. And when we look at cognitive and social and physical development of a child between the ages of 10 and 15, which is by far the most tumultuous and difficult time in a child's life in terms of identity, in terms of the way they see themselves, shame versus pride and confidence, that in anybody's mind, ask any child psychologist, that is the absolute wrong time to introduce a sycophantic entity into their lives. That is absolutely the most dangerous time to do that. And so 16, 17, for those that teach high school, they know by the time they get here in Ontario, for example, that's grade 11 and grade 12. By grade 11, they've hit a certain maturity, a certain understanding, and a certain view of life and themselves and where they fit in, who they are, that grants them the confidence to be able to resist, if they're educated, that sycophantic nature. So that's number one. Number one, use of AI for me should never occur under the age of 16. And so for the people out there going, holy smoke, Anthony, what, you want the students to just ignore it? No, absolutely not. I think every child from kindergarten all the way through should be educated about what it is. You can even take the content from this podcast and say, okay, here's some elements we want to teach the students. And the analogy I use is this. A 3-year-old could be standing on my sidewalk outside, early stages of language development. They'll see a Jeep, not a car, but they'll see a Jeep drive by, and for whatever reason, all the neurons are firing in their head, and they're able to say Jeep. Do that experiment. It's such a distinct thing. They could tell that this thing with 4 wheels, with the shape of the body, all of that complexity, they could identify that it's a Jeep. I would not take that 3-year-old then and say, you're ready to drive. Go ahead, hop in the Jeep. I wouldn't take that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up to 15-year-old and say, go ahead, jump in the Jeep now. And it's by coincidence that our jurisdiction says 16 should drive. Is it by coincidence or not? There is a physical requirement, a mental requirement, right, to stay safe. So we should teach our students about it. We should tell them what it is. We should show them examples, but we should do that in the context of safety and ethics. And we should say to the students, you should never socialize with it. These are its shortcomings. This is what the goals of the companies are. And you can teach any child that lesson. And I just don't understand why it isn't a priority already. That's about. Now let's move into if we do use it. Let's just say in the perfect world, in the blue sky world, educators are all on the same page. Say, all right, Anthony, we're only going to start in grade 11 really utilizing it. My first question is to educators is why? What solution do you need? What problem needs to be solved with AI? And if you do use it, how are you balancing the energy consumption and the exploitation of the humans involved? Because there are a lot of humans that are being exploited to bring that beautiful conversation to you. How do you balance that with your task? Are you going to give more to charity? Are you going to select a charity that's rooted in conservation of the environment? Are you going to go join your local community outreach program to help those who have mental health challenges in their lives? Because what people don't realize is, never mind the 8-year-old that's scraping lithium from the mines with their bare hands in order to produce batteries and microchips. And never mind the worker who is paid, the human who is paid to filter the worst conversations known to humanity, and they're exposed to that for $1 a day. Never mind that. And maybe you can reckon with the environmental impact of water consumption. And I know that that's a hot topic, but the reality is water is consumed to cool these massive data centers. And so what happens to that water? It re-enters the water cycle. Sure, it does. It's still consumable, just not to the community that it came from. So, okay, if we want to introduce critical thinking in the classroom using AI, I don't see what problem we're solving with that. We're actually just creating a lot more. You know, if companies were to recognize and see that there's no usage, they would stop coming after public monies. So I don't want to, I digress a little bit too much, but these are you asked me what ethical considerations. Those are the ethical considerations. And if we as teachers are charged with raising the next generation of balanced and thoughtful, participants in society, then we have to be asking those questions. Why all of a sudden is the environment not a priority? Why is child labor not a priority? Why is mental health not a priority? Those things fade away because they are the antithesis of progress and capitalism. And so we are caught in this world where innovation is pit against safety, innovation is pit against harm, and innovation is backed by these huge companies with limitless cap space. And that's what we end up dealing with.
And that collateral damage piece, which, I mean, that term doesn't even do justice to the damage because it's all encompassing and it's woven into everything now societally. I have noticed, Chelsea, and I bet you have too, where when a student is, let's say, using AI, another student will say, was that worth ruining a river in the Amazon? There are little comments that the students are using to almost pause and bring up that conversation. So that was more new to me because of the students. And then going to one of your workshops, that piece of it. I don't know that your average person is connecting the technology to the harm. And of course, the harm is great. It's almost like considering the carbon footprint. Is it worth it? The other piece of harm that I want to point out is I had been gifted a slideshow, and the slideshow, some of the images had used AI produced photos. All right. I would like to say unbeknownst to me, but I don't know that I had a huge ethical lens when I put that up, and did it bother me one way or another? I don't know that it did. One of the AI produced images had a person with 6 fingers. I didn't notice, but the students sure did. And they did shame me. Who made that picture? They asked me. And you know what? I didn't know. And I wasn't responsible for it, but I wasn't responsible enough to have really looked into that before I showed it either. And so ultimately, I've gone back to making sure that even if it's boring, my slideshow is made by me. Now I'm using technology, et cetera, et cetera. There's still implications there, and they're not all bad. But it really made me realize that care and concern that we put into what we put together for the students, it has a human element. And when you completely remove it and they're feeling that over and over, it's almost like microaggressions towards not putting in the human effort, and it builds up. And eventually we're just going to all be a bunch of machines talking to other machines. And so that human element is that piece of harm that I'm trying to illustrate here.
And that requires effort. That requires effort, Alex. So your example is a really good one. And my fear, and I think we should all be fearful, is when we choose convenience over that effort and we lose the elements that make us human.
I have to give the students credit right now because, it almost seems like they're just bored of this already. When they see an AI image, they go, oh, that's AI. They can identify it right away. And they go, we're over it. I think that we can blow it up in our heads too much because this is something that we have never experienced. And we've worked so hard, we walked to school uphill and all that stuff. And now this comes out and we're just like, whoa, this is amazing. But what's more amazing is what we've been doing for the past 20 years without it, right? And we really need to value that. And we really need to show the students that that's what matters here.
You're right. And the students are concerned. Like, as a father of four children, my two eldest, one's about to go to university and the other one is just a year behind. And I don't know if you have the same experience, but the question is, well, what's the point? Like, what are we needed for? And so the mission in our house has been to remind them that they're valuable and that we're not accepting. Like I always say to them, your dad's not accepting the way this is rolling out. And have faith and trust because there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of resistors. And we have to use those words. So it's great that the students see it. It's good that they're over it, but we also need them to be active. They have to be active in their resistance because the folks that are making decisions are often disconnected with the reality of what's happening on the ground.
So, what do you foresee happening with AI in teaching and learning in education?
Oh, that is a really loaded question. Um,
Mhm.
so, in the last 24 years, I can tell you I've been very confident in my predictions. Okay. And so it's really hard to answer this question because we are at a moment right now where we must change the trajectory. And I'm going to share a belief with you, but I'm not going to make a prediction because I'm afraid of my own prediction. So you could probably draw your own conclusions. But the energy, all of my energy, and I'm trying to share that with you. And I hear in your words that we're together, and with everyone who will listen, is that we must work together to change the way it's being pushed on us. And it doesn't have to be a massive change. It can be one no at a time, one why at a time. Like, why do we need to use this? Why do you want me to remove the human from teaching? Why do you want me to push students into more screen time? And I truly believe, and I mean this with all my knowledge and all my research, everything I'm giving to you now, and I've said to people around Ontario, Canada for a long time, for over a year and a half now, I believe that if we work together, we can change. We can change the trajectory. We can put a stop to the manner of the rollout and demand better and demand better. But if we cannot overcome our propensity to take the path that's always traveled, we could be in trouble. So this requires work. And it's not like the ozone layer that happened in the late 90s and early 2000s, where we were given time as a planet to respond. We've demonstrated we can overcome crises. We, in this situation at this time, in my opinion, need to act immediately. We really do. And we as teachers have, for lack of a better term, an army of beautiful, curious, intelligent human beings who look to us for guidance, and nothing can stop them. If we all work together, if we all unite our voices and demand better and more from those that are supposedly leading.
Wow, we typically live in a world where change is good. And in this case, change needs to be looked at with trepidation and guardrails need to be put in place. And as lucky human beings who get to interact with many other human beings, I'm hearing that we are a key piece to that puzzle. So I'll say that the takeaway from two very rich conversations is that before we get to the takeaways, we have to do some thinking and some processing. I know for one, I am unable in this moment to fully process and wrap up so many huge and consequential ideas in some simple takeaways.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to have to do an entire episode just to try to sum up the information that you've given us here today. So thank you so much for being here, Anthony, and we cannot wait to talk to you again.
Totally my pleasure. Thank you both.
Thanks for listening to the EduWell podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a positive review. It helps others to find us.
Follow us on Instagram and Pinterest to help spread the word. Until next time, be well
And do well.